there's a culture of truth that's supposed to permeate all press vehicles. It's gone. There's no culture of truth. None. It's get them. Get them out. We hate them. Get them. There's no search for what really happened. I'll give you 3 quick examples. All right. A guy named Gabriel Sherman, one of the worst reporters in the country, says on January 22nd of this year, quote, Donald Trump's relationship with John Kelly, his chief of staff, fraught from the beginning, may finally have gone past the point of no return. 2 prominent Republicans in frequent contact with the White House told me that Trump has discussed choosing Kelly's successor in recent days. Bull! Kelly's staying until the re-election campaign. It's bull. Total garbage. Did Sherman apologize? Did he out his 2 sources? No. I don't care. All right, here's the New York Times. Mark Lander, David Sanger, May 25th, 2018. As with so many issues involving this president, the views of his aides have often had little effect on what he actually says. On Thursday, for example, a senior White House official told reporters that even if the meeting were reinstated, the North Korean meeting reinstated, holding it on June 12th would be impossible. The meeting was held on June 12th with Kim Jong-un. Did Lander and Sanger apologize? Did they out the anonymous source and told, oh, it's impossible. Can't do it now. There's 2. You want? I got a 3rd. I can give you 50. There's Washington Post. Ashley Parker, Josh Dazzi, Robert Barnes. December 19, 2017. Trump, according to several people with knowledge of the discussions, was upset that Judge Gorsuch had pointedly distanced himself from the president in private conversations. He said that he found the attacks disheartening and demoralizing by Gorsuch. The president worried he would not be loyal, one of the people said, and told aides he was tempted to pull Gorsuch's nomination. As far as we know, that never happened. Gorsuch was nominated in glowing terms by President Trump. Okay. You getting it now? You seeing what it is? All anonymous sources, all BS. Any retractions? No. Any explanations? No. I can give you 150 every single day. Sources. And then you have the nerve of these newspapers editorial. Oh, no. We're seeking the truth. We, the press. Oh, how dare you come after us? And then you give them example after example after example. Oh, sometimes we don't have time. We don't have the space. A bunch of garbage. I mean, it is just garbage. The culture of truth in American journalism has vanished. Period. All right, Brennan. From 2013 to 2017, John Brennan was the director of the CIA in America. Okay. So Brennan has become Donald Trump's biggest critic on MSNBC. He gets paid to lash Trump. That's what MSNBC does. Hires people to assassinate Trump's character and Trump's policies. So Trump says, you know what? I've had enough of Brennan pulling his security clearance. He's not going to get information anymore from this government. Okay, we know why. Brennan hates Trump. So Brennan then calls in MSNBC and says this. Go.
I do believe that Mr. Trump decided to take this action, as he's done with others, to try to intimidate and suppress any criticism of him or his administration. And revoking my security clearances is his way of trying to get back at me.
Yeah, that's true. He hates you. Right? And yeah, he's trying to get back at you. Yeah, that's true. Okay. Thousands of people showed up in Honduras. They marched through Guatemala, which is a chaotic country that can't do anything. And then they went right up to the Usumacinta River, which separates Guatemala from Mexico. All right? Now, here's where the story really gets intense. In Guatemala, you got, let's say, 6,000 migrants. One bridge to get across to Mexico. One. It's a narrow bridge. Mexican authorities could have easily put up steel barriers on the bridge, manned by the Mexican military. And no migrant could have crossed. If they jumped in the river or used rafts to come across, you saw those pictures on television, then they could have been immediately arrested by the Mexican federales. It is illegal to cross into Mexico without a valid passport or visa. Illegal. So those people that came across the river by swimming or rafting would have been incarcerated if the Mexicans followed their own law. So that could have been stopped easily by Mexico City. It wasn't. Do you hear any reporting on that? Did anybody ask Nieto, the president of Mexico, why he didn't put up barriers and why he didn't man that with the Mexican military? Anybody? Nobody. I don't even think President Trump knows. I don't know what the State Department's doing. Pompeo should know. Because Trump's threatening to cut off aid to Honduras, Guatemala, and El Salvador because they're letting their people come. Well, what about Mexico? That was easy. Easy to do. Didn't happen. Number one, not reported. Nobody mentioned it. Maybe they couldn't pronounce the Usumacinta River, because I'm having a hard time pronouncing it. All right. So then you see the pictures of the mile-long march. And you see vehicles all over. And people are in the vehicles. One guy fell out and died. And it's an environmental catastrophe because 7,000 people need to use facilities. They need to be fed. They need water. All of that is there. No accident is there. Okay? This is organized. Who's organizing it? This group. Who's paying for it? Who? Who's paying for it? 60 Minutes? Dateline? Who? Now, I suspect it's Soros and his crew. They've done this before. I can't prove it. Is there anybody looking into that? Fronteras doesn't have to give its donors. It's based in Honduras. Okay. So now you have a poll. And the poll says, what do you think? Should we stop them or let them in? This is Rasmussen. 51% likely U.S. voters believe the U.S. government should stop the migrants. 38% say the government should allow them, all of them, come to the USA and apply for asylum. Okay, it's a 3-year wait to hear asylum cases. So that means that all these migrants, they come right into the USA because we can't detain them, especially if there's families. Don't have the facilities to do it anyway. They're in the wind. 3 years, they might show up, they might not, for their asylum hearing. But 38%, including 64% of Democrats, say, bring them on in. Come on in. And now when President Trump blames the Democratic Party, 64% of that party in this poll say, bring them on in. What do you think? There's not going to be more after? So there's 8,000 come in, there's going to be 408,000 after them. Hey, anybody can get in the United States to get asylum. 3-year backup with all these people, it's going to be 4 years. And that is what they wanted to do. Whoever organized this wanted to crash the U.S. immigration system. Crash it. That is the intent. Along with showing these pictures so Hispanic American voters would vote for the Democrats. Not one Democrat has come up with a solution to this problem. Not one. And I put out a net. President Trump's solution is you put the military there and act as a bulwark so that the migrants cannot get into the port of entry for the USA and request asylum. The military will stop that because the law says if you show up in the U.S. port of entry and ask a government official for asylum, they have to, by law, process your application. That's the law. Trump wants it changed. Now, the insanity of this is on cable news. And I'm just going to run you one brief soundbite today. I could have run 100 of them. but I'm going to run one because it's short. Roll it.
I'm also sure that Mexico has been incredibly vigilant and harsh, even with migrant populations that have come there on the Guatemalan border. That's what's been going on. They've been merciless in turning people around.
Okay, so that Democrat analyst believes that Mexico has been vigilant and merciless in trying to stop this migration. That's not true. I'm going to be kind. Not true. She is mistaken. But that's what you hear all over the place. Also unacceptable, Saturday Night Live. Now, if you read my message of the day, and I hope you do that every morning, check in with us. You know, I'm basically telling you, look, Saturday Night Live is not like it was with John Belushi and Chevy Chase and Dan Aykroyd and Gilda Radner way back when. Sorry, everybody watched that. It didn't matter what you're liberal, conservative. You tune in for a few laughs. Not like that anymore. It's like every other reality-based program, it has an audience, and the audience is liberal. And therefore, SNL, it tilts left, makes fun of conservatives most. Once in a while, they'll make fun of a liberal to say, you know, we do both, but primarily going after a left-wing audience, like Colbert does, all right, like Jimmy Kimmel does, like Bill Maher does. I mean, this is no accident. It's a design. These are the people we think are going to watch. We're going to give them what they want. Okay, so there's a guy named Pete Davidson. He's a contributor. Guy's a pretty funny guy, I have to say. Over the years, he's one of the better writers on that program. But he does this on Saturday. Roll it.
This guy's kind of cool. Dan Crenshaw.
Oh, come on, man.
Yo, hold on. You may be surprised to hear he's a congressional candidate from Texas and not a hitman in a porno movie. I'm sorry. I know he lost his eye in war or whatever. Whatever.
So now NBC is taking all kinds of heat because you can't make fun and laugh about a guy losing an eye in Afghanistan or Iraq or anywhere or Vietnam. So the congressman that he was talking about, Dan Crenshaw, a very classy guy, by the way, said, look, I'm going to quote him now. I don't demand an apology. He probably should apologize, but I don't want some hollow apology. I think he's exposed himself. I think he's exposed himself for who he really is. I kind of disagree. I don't know Davidson personally, but I don't think Davidson thought he was doing anything malicious. He was playing to his crew. He's immature. But anyway, Dan Crenshaw came up with a good idea. He said, look, why doesn't NBC apologize on just the network and donate $1 million to a vet charity that needs it? You know, like the independencefund.org, where we've raised millions for, or Wounded Warriors. They could do that. That'd be nice, wouldn't that? I don't know what's going on with Comcast, you know, the NBC. They're based in Philadelphia. They're not, maybe they are loons. I don't know. I never thought they were. But boy, oh boy, every 2 minutes, right? With NBC, never ends over there. CNN, we know what that is. Desperate, nobody watches, have to be craving attention and getting it in an I hate Trump way. We know that. NBC doesn't need to do this. They don't need to alienate most of the country. So we'll see what happens on that. But first, I got to get to this CNN Jim Acosta stuff. So as you know, because I've been saying it since I started this broadcast about 18 months ago, the press is corrupt in America. And the chieftains, the media bosses who run the journalism enterprises, give orders to their people. You do this. This is how we are going to report the story. When I first started 45 years ago, that never happened. Now it happens all the time. CNN is in the business to trash Donald Trump. Everybody knows that. All right? Nobody can say honestly, I don't believe it or it's not happening. That's what CNN does every day. So does the New York Times, so does NBC, MSNBC, so does the Washington Post. Okay? Now, Acosta is the White House correspondent. Now, I have an insight into this probably better than any human being on earth. I've interviewed President Gerald Ford. I've interviewed President Clinton. I've interviewed Hillary Clinton. President Bush the Younger 3 times. President Obama 3 times. President Trump 30 times. All right? I have interviewed them all. If you ever want to see them, Google President Obama, Bill O'Reilly, President Bush, Bill O'Reilly, and you pop up and you can see it. I consider myself the toughest interviewer in the country. Okay? And when I did those interviews with those men, I was criticized because I did interrupt them. Once they started to bloviate, once they wouldn't answer the question for whatever reason, I came in. I got criticized by the left and the right. I took the criticism, but I was never disrespectful. And I always couched my questions around facts. I did not give my opinion unless asked. And a couple of times I was asked by the presidents. But I would couch it around facts. This happened. Why did you do this? That's my typical question. Okay? For example, in Barack Obama, Muslim Brotherhood are killers. All right? They're a threat to the Egyptian government. Why are you backing Muslim Brotherhood, Mr. President? That was for Barack Obama. He didn't like that question. But I didn't debate him after he gave the answer. I had a respect for the office. And once he answered it, I moved on to another question. Jim Acosta has no respect for the office. He hates President Trump and all of the people who work for him. Now, he'll deny that, but he gets up and immediately starts a debate, not a question and answer, a debate. Roll the tape.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to challenge you on one of the statements that you made in the tail end of the campaign in the midterms. That
here we go.
If you don't mind, Mr. President, that this caravan was an invasion. As you know, Mr. President,
I consider it to be an invasion.
As you know, Mr. President, the caravan was not an invasion. It's a group of migrants moving up from Central America towards the border with the U.S.
Thank you for telling me that. I appreciate it.
They're hundreds of miles away, though. They're hundreds and hundreds of miles away. That's not an invasion.
Honestly, I think you should let me run the country. You run CNN.
All right.
And if you did it well, your ratings would be much better.
Okay, so what Acosta is doing is he's debating. He's not asking. If you wanted to ask about an invasion, you say, Mr. President, why do you consider it an invasion? I consider it an invasion. All right? You get 7,000 people organized in a foreign country, Honduras. They are marching thousands of miles with the express intent of crossing the American border and seeking asylum. That's an invasion, in my opinion. It falls under the definition of invasion. A home invasion is when people come into your home not invited. We didn't invite 7,000 people from Honduras. The U.S. government did not invite them, nor did the U.S. people. Okay? Home invasion, border invasion. But this pinhead Acosta, what he's doing is so wrong and so against every journalistic rule. He wants to debate and demean Donald Trump, the President of the United States. That's his intent. His intent isn't to seek information. If it was, he would say, why do you consider it an invasion when they're 1,000 miles away? They haven't even shown up yet. And then let the president answer. You want to follow up? Fine. But no, he says, quote, the caravan is not an invasion. Look, Acosta, nobody cares what you think. Okay, if they did, you'd have a primetime opinion show. No one cares. Least of all, President Trump. You're taking valuable time away from the American people who want a Q&A. And you're disrespectful to boot. Okay, so it deteriorates from there. And here's the second soundbite. Go.
CNN should be ashamed of itself having you working for them. You are a rude, terrible person. You shouldn't be working for CNN. Go ahead.
I think that's unfair.
You're a very rude person. The way you treat Sarah Huckabee is horrible. And the way you treat other people are horrible. You shouldn't treat people that way. Go ahead. Go ahead, Peter, go ahead.
In Jim's defense, I've traveled with him and watched him. He's a diligent reporter who busts his
Well, I'm
butt
not a
like
big
the rest
fan of
us.
yours either, so
I understand.
to be honest.
So let me ask you a question if I can. You repeatedly said...
You aren't the best.
Mr. President, you repeatedly, over the course of
Okay,
the...
just sit down, please. Well, when you report fake news, when you report fake news, which CNN does a lot, you are the enemy of the people.
Okay, so Acosta interrupts Peter Alexander, all right, his soulmate from NBC News. So what is that? What is that all about? Alexander has the floor. Alexander sticks up for Acosta. Fine. We know the coffee clutch game in D.C. I mean, they're the same person. Jim Acosta, Peter Alexander, same thing. Their orders are the same. Diminish the president. Make him look bad. That's what they're ordered to do. That's what they do. That's what Dan Rather did with Richard Nixon. That's what Sam Donaldson did with Ronald Reagan. I was there. I saw it with my own eyes. That's what they do. And they get famous, and Acosta gets to go on the late night shows or whatever, and he's the victim, and blah, 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 blah. And then he'll get a big raise at the end of the year by his CN Masters. I haven't covered him much because I know who he is and what he does. He is in the forefront of no due process, no innocence until proven guilty. This is what the man does. So yesterday, TMZ reports at 5:45 Eastern Time that he was arrested for assaulting a woman. All right, Avenatti denies it, and he deserves due process. All right, he deserves it. However, the arrest of a lawyer who represents Stormy Daniels and who attacked Brett Kavanaugh, okay, the arrest of that individual is a major story. Is it not? Well, MSNBC gave it 15 seconds. 15 seconds when the story broke. CNN didn't report it for 2 hours. And then when they did, they spent 2 minutes and 23 seconds on it. Avenatti appeared on CNN and MSNBC more than 200 times combined to attack President Trump and Brett Kavanaugh. So when I say the press is corrupt, the press is corrupt. This is flat out corruption. There's no question it is. And the facts are the facts. CNN didn't even cover it in the morning, 2 hours. Didn't even mention it. Okay? Morning Joe, 3 hours. We can't find a mention. 3 hours this morning. I'll tell you, it makes me sick. What's happened to the media in this country makes me ill.